What's up guys, it's my Geography States channel, and for this video it's going to be about Virginia. So Virginia is a state in the mid-Atlantic, well actually no, not in the mid-Atlantic, in the South Atlantic. It's in the east of the US. It borders many states. It borders North Carolina to the south. It borders the District of Columbia or Washington D.C. to the north. It borders Maryland to the east, the northeast, and it borders West Virginia to the west, Kentucky to the southwest, and it borders Tennessee to the southwest. The capital of Virginia is Richmond, and it sits right here. And Richmond sits on the river called James River. James River flows from the Atlantic, and it makes its way into Virginia. Richmond actually looks like a layout of Baltimore because of the buildings. Now, we're going to be talking about what is Virginia known for. Virginia, a matter of fact, Virginia is actually known for the first five presidents of the United States. So George Washington is actually from Virginia, if you didn't even know that. And Virginia is a very large state, and some people, even though Maryland looks smaller than Virginia, some people have been wondering which is bigger, Virginia or Maryland. Virginia is actually 3 times bigger than Maryland. Maryland has a kind of a wonky wonky shape for some reason. Look at this though, but it is nice because it's nice to be different. But Virginia is large, so it gets itself in the 35th largest state by area. And now we're going to be talking about what is the largest county in Virginia. The largest county in Virginia is Pittsylvania. And we'll put that right in here, just so you can see it. If you can see Pittsylvania, it's right here. As you can see, it's very big. And Danville is a city south of the county. It's not in the county though, but I can't even imagine. Danville actually takes up this place too. Danville is a county in southern Virginia, right on the border with North Carolina. It's surrounded by Pittsylvania County. Now we're going to be talking about what is the largest city in Virginia. Some people might think it's Alexandria. Some people think it's Richmond because it's the capital, or Roanoke, but it's actually Virginia Beach. Virginia, if you can see, you can obviously tell why Virginia Beach is the biggest. Virginia Beach is next to big cities like Norfolk and Chesapeake, and it's also right next to the Virginia Chesapeake Bay Bridge. This bridge connects from Oneonta County to Virginia Beach County, right here. Okay, now we're going to be talking about when was Virginia founded as state. It's above North Carolina, but it was founded on June 25th, 1788. Yeah, that's really surprising. It is above Maryland though. Now, how many counties does Virginia have? For a big state this size, you're probably expecting it to have a lot, and you're right. There are 95 counties in Virginia, and there are 38 independent cities in Virginia. And I can give you an example. I'll give you an example of the independent cities of Virginia. Virginia Beach is an independent city. Richmond, Roanoke, Fredericksburg, Charlottesville, Alexandria up in the north, right next to Washington, D.C., up there, and Buena Vista, Bristol, and Norfolk, and Suffolk. Those are examples. Those are cities in Virginia. And those are examples of independent cities. Maryland has one big independent city, which is Baltimore up there. Because Baltimore isn't a county at all. Annapolis is in Anne Arundel County, though, just saying. Now we're going to be talking about rivers in Virginia. There's the James River, like I said earlier in the video, which is right in Richmond, and it also passes through Mayo Island. Mayo Island is really an island just right in the middle of James River. And now we'll be talking about where does James River start from. Okay. So James River starts from the Atlantic. So James River starts from the Chesapeake Bay. And before we talk about the James River, let's talk about the Chesapeake Bay. So all of us know the Chesapeake Bay, right? The Chesapeake Bay is the most biggest body of water that the USA owns, and the USA owns it. Maryland and Virginia both share the bay, and Pennsylvania, because the Susquehanna River enters Maryland, then enters the Chesapeake. So both Maryland and Virginia. Maryland has more control of the Chesapeake, but Virginia also has control of it too, because it also enters Virginia. And then it goes into Virginia Chesapeake Bay Bridge, and on the other side of this bridge, it's the Atlantic Ocean. The Chesapeake flows into the Atlantic Ocean, and water mixes up. Anyway, now we'll be talking about the James River. The James River is a river starting from the Atlantic Ocean, and then it makes its way to the Chesapeake, and it passes through Newport News, which is another city close to Norfolk, Chesapeake, and Virginia Beach. It passes through Williamsburg, and it makes its way passing Hopewell, and then we keep going up north. It passes through Virginia State University, which is a really good university to go to. And eventually it keeps going up, and then eventually it reaches the capital, Richmond, and then it keeps going up. Eventually it does stop, but it does keep going. It does pass through New Canton, and we can actually see the river if you want to. Right now, what you're looking at is the capital of Virginia, which is Richmond, and the body of water you're seeing down there is the James River. And we can even show you the Chesapeake Virginia Bay Bridge. Okay, we gotta get a good one. Okay, so you might think this water is the same, but it's different. Why? Do you see the water over there? The water here, that's the Chesapeake. But the water over here, that's the Atlantic Ocean. And if you can see that bridge, not that bridge. If you can see that boat right there, that is a boat. Because the Chesapeake is an important bay because it has a lot of wildlife. And it's really important to our society and our environment. So lots of ships coming from, lots of boats and ships come from the Atlantic Ocean. And they make their way into the Chesapeake so they can get fish, and they can provide it for our stores that we now have now. You're probably a seafood you're eating right now, if you're watching this video, probably came from the Chesapeake, and you probably didn't even know that. But anyway, this is the water you see here, this is the Chesapeake. And the water you see here, this is the Atlantic. So we'll go on the bridge. So the Chesapeake Virginia Bay Bridge is basically the border between the Chesapeake Bay and the Atlantic Ocean. There, that's the Atlantic Ocean. All the way there, that's the Chesapeake. And you can see a little boat, maybe like a jet ski. I'm not sure if you can see it. And we can even show you Virginia Beach. Virginia Beach does have a lot of tall buildings, similar to Atlantic City in New Jersey. Now, we're going to be giving you more independent cities of Virginia. So, more independent cities about Virginia. There's a lot of independent cities. We're not going to say literally all of them, but we're just going to say some of them. So there's Richmond, there's Norfolk, and Fairfax, which is not too far from the Washington, D.C. area or considered the DMV. There's Richmond, Norfolk, Fairfax, Alexandria, which is another neighboring city in the District of Columbia, or Washington, D.C. It borders Arlington, and it also has this little bridge right on the Potomac River, and when you go on this bridge, you enter the beautiful state of Maryland. And we're going to talk about the Potomac River later in the video. Okay, then there's Charlottesville, which is right here. And then there's Williamsburg. There's Roanoke, which is a little southwest of Charlottesville. And there's Manassas. There's Fredericksburg, which is right here. It's southwest of Washington, D.C. and south of Manassas. And it's also south of Alexandria. Okay, now we'll be talking about rivers in Virginia. So first, we already talked about the James River. Now we're going to be talking about the Potomac River. So let's get into it. Okay, here's the Potomac. So the Potomac River is a river starting from the Chesapeake Bay, not from the Atlantic this time. It starts from the Chesapeake Bay, and right here, this is the border. If you can see this little white thing, this is the border between Maryland and Virginia. So Maryland owns the Potomac River. What I mean owns it, Maryland doesn't literally own the whole river, but Maryland has control of most of the river than Virginia and Washington, D.C. So the Potomac River starts from the Chesapeake. It passes through many counties, for example, it passes through St. Mary's County in Maryland, and it passes through Charles County and also Maryland. So it starts from the Chesapeake, and we keep making its way up north. It's right on the border between Virginia and Washington, D.C. And by the way, if you didn't know, the Wicomico River also starts here too. So the Potomac River is right here, and we keep going up north. It's still the borders of Virginia and Maryland. And eventually, the river also goes into the District of Columbia or the Washington, D.C., so you understand better. And then there's this little river in D.C. It's called the Anacostia River. The Anacostia River comes from Maryland. It comes from Hyattsville. I'm pretty sure you've heard of it. And the Anacostia River empties into the Potomac River, and the Potomac River keeps going. It passes through Washington, D.C., Arlington, Alexandria, St. Mary's, and Alexandria, and lots of cities too. And anyway, we keep making its way up north. The Potomac River is a very long river. It's actually the longest in Maryland, too. Now we're already here. But believe it or not, once you get to here, the Potomac River stops. Maryland owns most of the Potomac River, but Virginia doesn't own most of it. And then after, the Potomac River goes into West Virginia. Yeah, it does go to West Virginia too. So now Virginia doesn't have the river anymore for now. So now it's just Maryland and West Virginia. And the reason why Maryland owns most of the river than Virginia is because most of the river is belonging in Maryland. And people say that if something is mostly in someone's territory, then it mostly belongs to them. And the Potomac River is mostly in Maryland, so Maryland owns most of the river. Virginia has some control. I don't know about Washington, D.C. They probably do. So now this is the border between the Potomac River. This border is the border between Maryland and West Virginia. And right here, this is the Chesapeake and Ohio Canal right next to the Potomac River. And the Potomac River passes through Conch Island. Now we pass through Williamsport. Williamsport is a city in Maryland. It's right south of Hagerstown. Hagerstown is in not Frederick County, but Hagerstown is right here. And Williamsport is a city, and it's right on the border with West Virginia. But we skip that. Here's the Potomac River. It makes this little loop right here. And we keep going up north. It passes through Hancock in Maryland. And we're almost reaching Cumberland. Oh, now we're here. Eventually, the Potomac River changes, and instead of the Potomac River, it changes its name to the North Branch Potomac River because it's north up. So it's now it's called the North Branch Potomac River, and now we'll just call it the Potomac. It's the North Branch Potomac River, but we'll just call it the Potomac River just for shortness. So now the Potomac River passes through Cumberland, which is in Allegheny County, and it passes through Ridgely. Ridgely is a city on the border with Maryland and West Virginia, and on the border with the Potomac River. And Cumberland is also an historic city with a lot of museums. But then eventually it leaves Cumberland and keeps making its way. It passes through Cresaptown in Maryland. And eventually we keep going down south. It passes through McCool. And then eventually the North Branch Potomac River, it empties into this lake called the Jennings-Randolph Lake. But it doesn't stop there. It then makes another river called the North Branch Potomac River again, and Three Forks run is a little creek, like small. No one even knows it probably. It empties into the North Branch Potomac River. And there's a lot of mountains because because Maryland is kind of flat. It's kind of flat, but when you go north of Maryland, there's a lot of mountains. But mostly on the eastern shore, it's very flat. You can't find a single mountain there. And eventually, we're almost seeing a stopping point because as the river flows, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller because there's not enough water for it to keep going up. The North Branch Potomac is still thriving. You can even look at it. This is the North Branch Potomac River you're looking at right now. And I'm just gonna leave an arrow right here. I'm gonna leave an arrow right there so we can find the way. Look how small the Potomac River. Look how small the Potomac River is right here. And look how big look at the size of the Potomac River here. Isn't this big, right? But if you go to this Potomac River, it's small because as the river flows, it gets smaller and smaller because there's not enough water to make it bigger, so it dries up. And eventually reaches a stopping point, and then the North Branch Potomac River dries. There might be another tributary that delivers the Potomac River to Ohio, I think. But until then, the Potomac River stops in Garrett County, Maryland. So basically, Maryland owns most of the Potomac River because most of it's in Maryland, and so basically Maryland has the Potomac River, Washington D.C. or the District of Columbia has it, Virginia has it, and West Virginia has it. But this video is mostly about Virginia, so let's go into it. Okay, now we're gonna do Jackson's River. Okay. Okay, this is the Jackson's River. The Jackson's River is a river right in the middle of the Appalachian Mountains. And if you don't know what the Appalachian Mountains is, the Appalachian Mountains is mountains in the northeast U.S. It goes into West Virginia, and like I said, Maryland is flat, but Maryland isn't bad. Maryland has a lot, and I'm talking about a lot of mountains. There's a lot of mountains in Garrett County, Allegheny, and Washington, and like a little bit around Hagerstown. Not much though, not like a hell lot, but there's a couple. Most of Maryland's mountains are in like the northwest, like far northwest. But anyway, they're in North Carolina and they're in Tennessee. And if you stop by Tennessee, you should go to Smoky Mountains because it connects with the Appalachian Mountains. Georgia does, and even Georgia has a couple of mountains too, but Alabama not so much. Alabama isn't flat though. There's a couple things. The most flat state is Indiana though. But anyway, yeah. Now we're going to be talking about one more thing about Virginia. Okay, we'll do a river that most people like. For some reason, whenever I'm going on TikTok, people talk about the Chowan River, and we'll just talk about it since everyone likes it, apparently. Okay, let's go put it in here. Okay, this is the Chowan River. Oh, I know this river. Okay. So the Chowan River is a river that is actually in North Carolina. Yeah. So basically, it starts from the It starts from the Albemarle Sound. It connects with the Atlantic Ocean. It starts from this little bay called the Albemarle Sound. It connects with it, and then here is the Chowan River. It starts from North Carolina, but it does enter Virginia, though. That's why it's in Virginia, but it starts in North Carolina. So North Carolina has control of the whole river. And then the Chowan River makes up a creek called the Bennett Creek, but it doesn't stop there. It keeps going. It's a very big river. It's not small. So then we're still in North Carolina, and the Chowan River in North Carolina passes through Winton, which is a small town. It's like Vienna, Maryland, but it's in North Carolina. It's a small town. And now we're in North Carolina. It's the Chowan River. If you can see this little line, this line is the border between Virginia and North Carolina. We're still in North Carolina, now we're in Virginia. We're in North Carolina, now we're in Virginia. The Chowan River is the Chowan River is surprisingly long, but it's short too. I've seen longer rivers, but basically the Chowan So the Chowan River, so Virginia honestly doesn't really have the Chowan River, basically. We'll be talking about the Nottoway River and the Blackwater River. They both empty into the Chowan River, and the Chowan River goes into North Carolina. Okay, that's it for Virginia. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. Bye.